All right. Welcome into the real story about Thanksgiving and how it all really went down hundreds of years ago before you even knew, and all the lies you've been told about it. But first off, I'll start with doing what everybody else does here. I'll show you what I've made for Thanksgiving. I started out making this delightful chicken. Um, I figured it would be really good today when it's warm out. Throw some buffalo flavor on it in the cold and warm yourself up. And so I made that. After that, I made a delightful fruit salad. Uh, that's gonna taste well with that. Give me my fruits and vegetables for the day, and then for dessert, I went made some taco type beef. I made some tacos, and so that's what I've got for Thanksgiving dinner. And I really prepared it really well. Took a lot of time and effort, but just wanted everybody to see that it was really good. But I figure you should know the true story of Thanksgiving and how things really happened. We know long ago, Church of England it was just overbearing and lots of problems with it. And people up there were like, "Hey, you know what? I'm kind of done with this. I think we need to get away from here." And so they packed it up. The Puritans, the Pilgrims, whatever they did, they packed it up and they're like, "All right, let's roll along and see what we can go find." And so they bounced around to get out of there, and then they ended up in the Netherlands, and so they were sitting over there in the Netherlands, going, "All right, well, this is better, but it's still not great." And they get the background of all the folks who did it, and there was this one pilgrim, and his name was we'll call him Mike Smith, and Mike had made that journey to the Netherlands and everything, and he was sitting there, and he'd worked really hard to get there and everything. And but while they were there, Mike's wife had told him, "Hey, pretty tired of you. Um, I'm tired of your pain and depression and stuff. I think you should, you know, move on along, get out of here." And Mike's like, "Wow, okay." And so Mike it just happened oddly to be a fisherman. That was his job when they took off, was to fish and provide meals that way for you know, for the group. He found a group that was headed toward America, and he goes, "I'm out. I'm going to go there, and I'm going to go help my fellow pilgrims there, and I'm going to go settle in America and do my job of fishing for them." And so they got over there, and they came into a country that a lot of people think was not very well settled. But I mean, the truth was, I mean, there were people here before that, right? You had the Native Americans there, and you had other, toward the you had people obviously lived in Mexico. You had Native Americans all across the coast. The French, the Spanish had already settled, in the South, and were moving up through the Americas that way. And there was actually a very in-depth amount of trade going on within the country. And you've all heard of, Squanto, the Indian that came to help the Pilgrims there. Well, what Squanto actually was, he was a member of the Flippin Tribe, and Squanto had moved east from his tribe because they were already at this point, when the Pilgrims first landed, they were already making Ranger boats in Flippin, Arkansas. The Flippin tribe was building boats, and um, Squanto was actually just the Eastern region salesperson for Ranger boats, and then all these people that weren't normally living there showed up, and he's like, "Oh my goodness, hey, welcome to America. I've got all these Ranger boats I'm trying to sell." And he was just, it it catapulted Squanto into being the number one sales guy in all of the Flippin tribe for Ranger boats. How far they'd spread out their commerce in the country. He became number one because of that. And Squanto, being number one guy and having these folks like Mike Smith over there who were just there, going out fishing, providing and enjoying their life then, because he left, Mike Smith had left an annoying life behind in Europe over there in the Netherlands. And so the Thanksgiving was actually a time put together to celebrate being able to go out on your ranger boat and fish, and to for others to go out and to hunt and to not, and it was meant to celebrate the ability to go out and do all that without anyone nagging you about anything. And so that is the true story of how Squanto, the sales rep from the Flippin Tribe in Arkansas, had sold and became the number one Ranger dealer on the East Coast because of all the pilgrims that came in. And they had a big Thanksgiving meal to give thanks for Squanto being number one. And when Squanto had that big festival, everybody knew that it was, it was about, wow, this is about having boats and fishing and not having any other hindrances or annoyances in life. And that's how the true story of what Thanksgiving was actually, how it happened, and not what those teacher people told you in school. They're all liars. And so now you know. Now you know the true story of Thanksgiving. And with that, I am going to sit down here and eat my Thanksgiving, and then I'm going to get back to fishing and catching things because that's what you're supposed to do to celebrate this. You know what I mean? You're supposed to get in that flipping boat, Arkansas, and do what Squanto did, Mike Smith, the Pilgrim, and leave everything behind and go fish because that's what was supposed to be done. That was the most important thing. So just remember that.